Hello, and welcome to the World Storytelling Café. I am Lorenzo, and I am recording from Edinburgh, from my not too big bedroom. Strange times, huh? Strange times indeed. I just came back from my 1 hour in the outside world, and I went walking to the Braid Hills. I wanted to go running, but I went running a couple of days ago and I can still feel my legs. Apparently, running is not a good idea for a storyteller out of practice. Anyway, the Braid Hills were still beautiful. Everything is so spring-like and lush and yellow. And it was weird to experience that, keeping in mind that I have to keep 2 meters away from other human beings. But it's for my safety and for their safety. And in a way, for your safety as well. Because now more than ever, we realize how interconnected we all are. We live in a web where everyone needs to care for themselves as much as they care for others, and the other way around. Well, enough for the serious talk. I'm here to tell some stories, and I selected some silly ones. I am from Italy, so all the stories that I'll be sharing are parts of storytelling folklore, some from my region, Liguria, and some from the regions around it, Tuscany, Piemonte. I hope you will enjoy them. It's going to be extremely strange for me. It's going to be a new experience telling to a camera without the lovely feedback of a live audience. I'm used to tell stories locking eyes in eyes with my audience and breathing the same breath, creating the same images and living the same emotions. I hope you will still bear with me. I'll do my best to connect with you in a way or another. Anyway, once upon a time, there lived a boy. His name was Giovanni, but we will call him Jack, just for ease of pronunciation. Jack was not afraid of anything, so much so that they called him Giovanni senza paura, Jack with no fear. Was he afraid of spiders? No. Was he afraid of the darkness? No. Was he afraid of death itself? Of course not. And Jack, fearless Jack, used to live on the road. He slept where his head would hit something soft, covered by the stars under the beautiful sky. All year round. In summer, it was wonderful. In spring and fall, still doable. In winter, sometimes it was grim. But hey, we were in Italy back then. It's not like Scotland. You can do it all year round. Now, once, Jack, in his wandering, came to a small village. He went to a tavern. He asked for some wine and some bread, and asked the tavern keeper if, by any chance, he had a spare room, or even a corner in the stables. The tavern keeper answered, "I'm sorry, boy, this is a tavern, not an inn, and I cannot host you. But if you really are looking for a place to sleep, well, there is a castle on top of a nearby hill." Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it, for it's cursed, and anyone who tries and sleeps there never wakes up. Now, the tavern keeper was trying to scare Jack off just for fun, but Jack, as he heard of a castle, a cursed one, his eyes sparkled, he smiled broadly, even his ears smiled. He took the wine, the bread, asked for a piece of cheese, and off he went to see the cursed castle. The tavern keeper, he felt awful and immediately went around in the city to let everyone know that the poor boy would die for sure that night. But this is what happened. Jack climbed up the hill, passing through some dark, thick forest. The trees leaning over him as if they were trying to hold him back. The undergrowth was so thick that his feet has to push and pull for each step. When finally he reached the castle, it was a huge, black, looming structure. Only one of the towers still stood, the others had fallen, and only finger-like ruins were left. 2 windows right next to the main door looked like empty eye sockets around a nostrils. This place was it! Jack was in love with it! He walked right through the main door, waving away some big, huge spiders. And he found himself in a huge chamber. The air was thick and humid and clung on his arms as if the mist was trying to push him out of the castle. But in the very room, in the big room, he found a table, an old moldy chair next to an old chimney. He decided that that was a great spot for dinner. So he rested his wine, his bread, his cheese, decided to go for a walk around, found some amazing spider webs, a lovely nest of bats, rats the size of cats. I mean, it was literally the best place on earth. When he went back to his dinner, one of the rats was trying to eat the cheese. He waved it away, sat, and opened the wine bottle. He took a knife in his pocket and started cutting the bread when, from the chimney, he heard a voice. "Butto." "Sure," said Jack, who was Italian and understood Italian. Throw it, let it come." And from the chimney came a dead hand, white, covered in moss and bugs, and there was even a worm walking his way around a finger. Jack looked at the dead hand and sliced some cheese next to the bread. Again came the voice from the chimney, "Butto." "Yeah, throw it, let it come." And from the chimney came a second and even more dead than the first one, white as the first one, with the nails covered in dirt. Jack bit his bread and cheese. "Butto," said the chimney. "Throw it, let it come." And out of the chimney came a dead foot, smelly and swollen like a drowned man's foot. "Butto," said the chimney. "Let it come, throw it," said Jack. And another foot, as dead as the first one, as dead as the hands. Jack drank some wine, ate some cheese. He was enjoying the scene. "Butto," said the chimney. "Let it come, throw it." And out of the chimney came a dead chest with a belly swollen, definitely a drowned man. The skin so white you could count the blue veins. "Butto," said the chimney one last time. "Throw it, let it come," said Jack. And out of the chimney came a head. Black beard, black dead eyes, a worm crawling out of an ear and in a nostril. As soon as the dead head hit the floor next to the rest of the body, the pit started shaking and dancing around the floor, and then the feet stood up, and the torso went on top of them, and the hands at the end of the arms, and the head on the neck. The dead man stood 2 meters tall right in front of Jack, and Jack took another bite of bread and cheese. "Follow me," said the dead man, and started walking away from the chimney. Jack definitely wanted to see where this would go, so he grabbed his wine, his bread, and followed the dead man. They walked past empty halls, empty corridors, up and down empty staircases, until they reached a small, small room. There was a hidden trapdoor on the floor, and the dead man, pointing at it, said, "Open it." "You open it? My hands are busy. I have wine and bread. I cannot open it. You go for it." "Open it," I said. "I cannot. My hands are busy." "Open it." I cannot, dead man. You go for it." They argued for a while until the dead man said, "Oh!" and reached out with his dead hand and lifted the trapdoor. Jack couldn't hold his curiosity in. He peeked down and heard a voice, "Go down the stairs." "No way," said Jack. "I have no idea where those stairs are leading. You lead the way." "Go first." "You go first." "Go ahead." "You go ahead." "Go, I said." "Go, you go, I said." They argued until the dead man said, "Ugh!" and went down the stairs. Jack followed because he was just too curious. At the end of the narrow staircases was another secret room, narrower than the first one. The air was so thick, you could tell no one had breathed it in for centuries. In the middle of the floor, there was 3 pots full of gold. The dead man said, "Take them upstairs." "No way. My hands are busy and you're far stronger than I am." Now, the dead man knew better than argue, so he took 1 pot with one hand, 1 pot with the second, and the third pot as well, and climbed upstairs. They went all the way back to the chimney, where the dead man rested the 3 pots and said, "Well done. You were not afraid of me, so you shall live. 1 of these 3 pots is for you. The second one is for the men who will come in the morning thinking that you are dead. The third one is for the poorest men in town. But beware. If you will not be able to take the 3 pots out of the castle before dawn, you'll be dead." And as he said so, his hand fell, and then the other fell, and then his legs came off, and his head fell from the torso, and all the 5 pieces went back to the chimney. Jack stood there, flabbergasted. Too many things had happened, and he had not even finished his wine. But he had to take the gold off, and dawn was almost there. He could hear the birds chirping, and the sky was definitely clearer. So he took the first one and ran off. He took the second one, but he was tired already and tried to push it out with the third one. He couldn't even lift it, and pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled. And you could see the rays of the sun coming closer and closer to the castle, when he finally pushed the last pot out of the door. That is when the sun broke out from the mountains. And quite at the same time, Jack heard voices coming from the valley. L'Eterno riposo. Hey, I'm alive, no need to sing for my death. Jack screamed and ran towards the 4 men carrying an empty coffin. They were so scared that one of them fainted, and for a second they thought that they would fill the coffin anyway. But as Jack explained what had happened, as Jack showed them the gold that they gained just because they were coming for him, oh well, the 4 men were happy and strong all of a sudden. They helped him take the 3rd pot all the way down to the village. They found the poorest man and gave him the gold. Now, I don't know what the poor man did with his pot of gold, but I know what Jack did with his. He decided to move and live in the castle. He refurbished it not too much. He decided that the look from the outside was quite cool. He decided though that rats are not good neighbors, so he pushed them out. He bought some new furniture pieces, some like fancy tables and armchairs and a wardrobe, and he lived like a rich man in his castle for a long, long life until after his 90th birthday. He was chilling in one of his balconies, looking at the beautiful valley. The sun setting right in his face, warm and red and beautiful. He turned his back to the sun and saw on the wall of his castle something so terrifying that he died of fear. He saw his shadow that he had never noticed before. And that's how Jack, fearless, ended his story. Wow. One gone, two to come. I hope you enjoyed it. And sorry if I take a sip of water, but wow, it was a long one. Ooh. It's definitely different telling stories to a screen, because the screen doesn't laugh back. I hope you laughed a little bit. I hope you did. I hope you did. Now, the next one, it's actually, arguably, one of my favorite stories of all time. The first time I told it, I think I was 18. I was working at a summer camp, and after lunch, I was just looking for a way or another to keep the boys and girls in check. You know, that weird time after lunch where you're not allowed to take it to like go swimming in the sea and you have to just do something for an hour. Well, I used to tell stories, and I found this in a book. And I thought, yeah, why not? Another monster story, cool. But it kind of stayed with me. And I think there is something in this story that's not just for kids at a summer camp. I hope you like it as much as I do. Once upon a time, there lived a boy. His name was Giovanni, but we will call him Jack for sake of pronunciation. Now, Jack was a lumberjack, and this is not a joke. It literally was a lumberjack, but a very bad one. Like, so much so that this story begins one day when Jack was chopping down a mighty tree. And the tree fell right on his leg, his right leg. It was a bloody business. His friends were terrified. The wound looked so nasty. They grabbed Jack by the arms and ran to the nearest hospital, to the nearest doctor. The doctor stitched him up, bandaged him in white bandages, and then said, "Jack, when you go home, no matter what you do not take off the bandages and do not touch your wound." Now, what did Jack do the minute he got home? Of course, he unwrapped the bandages and looked at his wound. It was the most beautiful wound he had ever had. Have you ever been proud of a wound? I know I have. Have you ever fallen and opened a nasty, gnarly wound in your hand? I have, and it was gorgeous. Well, Jack's wound was even better. A white line that promised to become a mighty scar, circled by a purple halo, surrounded by a yellow and red aura. It looked like a painting, and the black stitching crisscrossing the white scar, they were the work of an artist. Jack couldn't hold it, so he decided that he wouldn't touch it. And just as he was about to go, bzzz, a big, fat fly, so big you could count the hair on his body, bzzz, landed right there on the wound. Now Jack... Oof. Bzzz. 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 So many flies! They kept coming, and he kept spilling them all over the place until no more flies came. And he counted the bodies on the floor. 500 flies! There was something. He had never killed 500 flies in one take. He thought that he had not killed 500 flies in his lifetime. Who had? Like, there was a deal, like a deed worthy of a mighty warrior. So he grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and he wrote a sign. Jack, strong and brave, to 500s. Death he gave. It sounded quite cool. And he decided to wear his sign on his chest whenever he went. So when he went to town, Jack, strong and brave, to 500. Death he gave. And when he went to the market, Jack, strong and brave, to 500. Death he gave. And when he met people on the street, Jack, strong and brave, to 500. To 500? What? Asked people. Well, not to Jack, of course, because, I mean, what if it was 500 men? You don't want to mess with a mass murderer, do you? So they just whispered in corners, 500, 500 what? 500 bandits? 500 monsters? 500 dragons? I mean, I've heard that he killed a giant single-handedly. I've heard that he killed a dragon with a bite. I've heard that he killed a chimera with a snap of fingers. The stories became bigger and bigger and bigger, and the fame of Jack, strong and brave, reached the ear of a king. And the king thought, well, I need a man like this Jack. So the king took his crown, hid it under his cloak, and went to the city looking for Jack. Luckily enough, he found him sitting at a pub with a pint of ale in front of him. It said, "Hey Jack, is it you, Jack? Jack, strong and brave, that killed 500. Jack said, well, I might need a man like you. There is a giant living on a nearby hill. Well, I need someone to kill the giant. Would you do it?" Said Jack. I mean, he had heard the stories about himself, and he knew that a giant was not a problem for Jack, strong and brave. So he set off and started climbing up the mountain. Halfway there, he met a farmer surrounded by a small herd of sheep. He bought 2 pieces of fresh cheese and climbed on, holding the 2 pieces of cheese in his hand. Soon after, he reached the cave of the giant. He was quite sure he was in the right place for 3 telling details. First of all, the smell, the lingering smell of death. Second of all, the bones scattered all around the cave. But thirdly, and most importantly, a sign, giant, and an arrow pointing right at the cave. Now Jack went all the way to the mouth of the cave and there said, "Giant, come out of your cave." And well, out of the cave, the giant came, and it was much bigger than Jack could ever imagine. Jack stepped back and said, "Giant, behave well, or mind you, I'll crush your head like I crush this rock. Now, one thing you have to know about giants. Their eyesight is not the best. I mean, they're too tall to see details all the way down on the ground. So the giant heard what Jack said and saw that he smashed something, and he just thought it was a rock. Was startled for a second. You heard me well, said Jack. Misbehave, and your head I'll crush like this rock. The giant was impressed. Oh, you are a strong one. I am a big one. With my size and your strength, we will terrify the world, not just this little kingdom. Well, Jack thought it was a good idea, so decided to live with a giant for a while. Now, the giant wanted to test just how strong Jack actually was. So he said, Jack, I have a challenge for you. Tomorrow we'll go to the woods to gather wood, and whoever gets the most shall be the winner. Do you agree? Well, Jack didn't quite have a choice, did he? So the next day they did go to the woods, and there the giant grabbed a mighty hook with an arm, grabbed another one with a second arm, and pushed and pulled until the two trees came out with the roots and all. Jack was not impressed. Grabbed a rope, tied a knot around a tree, and walked to the next and tied a knot, and walked to the next and tied a knot, and walked to the next. And what are you doing? Asked the giant. Oh, well, I thought that if I tie together all the trees in the forest and I'll pull the rock real hard, I'll gather all the woods in the forest in one take. You'll do what? I'll gather all the woods. No. That's not a good idea. The giant, though, was absolutely terrified. He had never thought of that, and he knew that he couldn't pull it off. You win this time, but don't do that. You would ruin the forest. We went back to the cave. The giant now was a bit worried about Jack. I mean, how strong was he? Jack, I have another game for you. Tomorrow we'll go to the hill and we'll throw rocks. And whoever throws a rock the farthest away will win. So the next day they went to a rocky side of the hill. The giant grabbed a huge rock like a monolith, lifted it with no effort, and tossed it all the way across the forest. It was an impressive feat of strength. But Jack did not even blink. He rested his arm on a bigger rock. Ahoy! Ahoy! Make way! Make way! He screamed. What are you doing? Said the giant. Well, I saw people and I'm telling them to move away. The giant looked but couldn't see anyone. No, the other side of the ocean. The other side of the ocean, there are people on the shore, and I'm telling them to move. The other side of the ocean. Yeah, because if I toss this rock all the way. No. That's not a good idea. Don't do anything. I thought I could never lift that rock, let alone throw it all the way across the ocean. You win this time, but don't do anything. No. So they went back to the cave, and by now the giant was absolutely terrified. And that's when Jack said, listen, giant, I have a game for you. Tomorrow we'll race. We'll run all the way to the village and all the way back to the cave. And whoever comes back first will be the winner. That sounds like a nice idea. I like running. Yeah, I thought so. With your long legs. Actually, your legs are so long that maybe you could give me 5 minutes, like advantage? Yeah, that's reasonable. But I liked your idea. So the next game was running, and the next day they did run. Jack set off with 5 minutes of advantage and run downhill and run until he met the very same farmer that he had met so long before, with the very same sheep around him. Jack bought a sheep from the farmer, grabbed the sheep by the legs, took his hunting knife and sliced it open. Poor sheep. Took all the guts and spilled the guts on the path around him, then hid the sheep in a bush. The farmer was bamboozled, to say the least. What are you doing, young man? Farmer, a giant is coming running this way. When you see it, he will ask you where I went. Point towards the village. He will ask you if I was running, and you will say yes. He will ask you about these guts, and you have to tell the giant that I sliced my own belly open to let the guts out, be lighter, and run faster. And said so. Jack jumped in a bush right a second before the earth started shaking and trembling, and soon enough the giant came in all its might, running. He had gathered all his strength, and he was actually thinking that there was no Jack on earth that could scare him, and he was ready to grab the little Jack by the head and eat it when he saw the guts on the floor and said, "Farmer, have you seen a boy coming this way? Because he is my lunch, and I'm looking for him." Yes, he came this way. He ran to the village, and to run faster, he sliced his belly open and let out the guts to be lighter and run faster. "Oh," said the giant, "that is a good idea," and reached to his hunting knife, and that's the day the giant died. Jack came out of his hiding place, cut one of the fingers out of a hand, and took it all the way to the palace as proof that he had killed the giant. The king could do nothing but praise him, and ever since, Jack, strong and brave, was remembered as a hero. Oh. As I said, telling to a screen is quite absurd, especially if you're making the voices. Like, if you're making voices of a character in front of a screen, you feel completely crazy. But I'm doing it for you guys, so I hope you appreciate. Now, the next story is by far the most serious of the selection, so get ready for a very introspective ride. Once upon a time, in Italy, there lived the most beautiful princess. Her skin was white as snow, her face a perfect oval, her hair black as a raven's wing, her eyes blue and deep as lakes. She was beautiful, yes. She only had one quirk. She never smiled. Now, her dad, the king, he loved her. He really did love her. He truly, deeply loved her. But after 18 years of not even a smile, not even a twitch, he was just at his wit's end. Every morning he would tell a joke and nothing. After lunch, he would tell the funniest thing that happened during the morning, and nothing. Every night he would come up with the silliest, craziest stories, and she never cracked a laugh. After 18 years of this life, he said, "Daughter, my lovely daughter, I love you so very much, but I thought that it's time for you to get married and live happily ever after somewhere else. I mean, I will miss you so much. You're the light of my old age, but I am truly thinking about your happiness. So tell me, beautiful daughter, I love you so much. Tell me, will you get married? Father, this sounds like a great idea. Oh, it's so good to see how happy you are about this. So tell me, what do you want from your husband? Do you want your husband to be beautiful? We will find the most beautiful. Dad, beauty, it's not important. It fades with age. It's only skin deep. Oh, daughter, you're so wise. You're so wise. True. So you want your husband to be rich. You want your husband to be filthy rich, like the richest man. Oh, father. Rich is not important. Being rich is not relevant. No. Then tell me, daughter, tell me, what do you want from your husband? I will marry a man able to make me laugh. Ugh. Well, it was worth a try. So the king had his servants write a letter to all of his kingdom, saying that whoever was able to make the princess laugh, rich or poor, would become prince and marry her. And you can only imagine the amount of people who decided to try. The first, of course, were the princes, who would have tried anyway, because she was indeed beautiful and a princess. So the first to walk to the palace was a young, beautiful prince, a short cape on his shoulders, a white plume in his hat. He bowed in front of the princess and said, "Milady, a joke for you. Do you know why the chicken, crosses the road? To prove he's no chicken." "This doesn't even make sense," said the king, and waved him away. Came in another. "Do you know why a goose crosses the road? To prove it's no chicken." "Oh, this is not better than the last one." "Do you know why another chicken?" Enough with poultry." And the king was furious, and in they come one after the other with sad, poor jokes, and the princess never laughed. Now the story of the princess who couldn't laugh flew as fast as only stories can fly, all the way to the ear of a young boy. His name was Giovanni, but we will call him Jack for sake of pronunciation. Jack thought, well, it's easy. I can make a girl laugh. I can become prince, easy peasy. So he grabbed some water and some bread and some ham and tied it all together, put it on his back, and went to the capital. And as he went, he thought, wow, a farmer can become a prince in just one night with just one joke. That's great. That's amazing. And as he walked, he smiled and looked at how beautiful the world was and thought, oh, this is great. And in a fortnight, I will be king of this all. And so he almost missed a rock standing right in the middle of the path with an old woman sitting on top. She was wrapped in a black cloak, and her old hands were clasping her throat. When he noticed her, well, she indeed looked troubled. So he came closer and said, "Nonna, hai bisogno di qualcosa?" The old woman reached out with a claw that looked like bark, grabbed Jack, and said, "Me spelinsega agua." Because not only she was Italian, but she was from Genoa. Now, luckily enough, Jack understood that she was thirsty, so he reached out with his water. The old woman drank avidly and said, "Oh, Jack, ti è un bravo fante, ben feto. Te voglio dare in regalo." "Oh, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. Tomorrow I'll be king, and everything I'll want will be mine. So don't worry, old woman. I don't need anything. E come ti fai a diventare re? Oh, it's easy. I'll go to the castle and I'll tell a joke, and the princess will laugh, and I'll be prince, and in a couple of years I'll be king. Ma a me pare un po' strana sta storia, said the old woman, and reached out. Right next to her boulder was a white goose. She reached out and said, "This goose is magical. She will follow you wherever you go. And whenever the goose says quack quack, you have to answer attaccati là. Quack quack, attaccati là. Quack quack, stick to that." Now Jack, fine, thank you. He accepted the goose and off he went on his road. And soon enough he forgot about the weird old woman, but the goose kept following him like a dog. Come nighttime, he found an inn where to sleep. The innkeeper noticed how beautiful the goose was and asked Jack if it was on sale. No, it's a magical goose and I am not allowed to sell it. Magical goose? Not for sale. Take the room right next to mine, because you look like a weary traveler and I want you to spend the night in the best room we have. Jack took the best room in the inn. Little did he know that the daughters of the innkeeper had the keys to his room and were planning to steal the goose. So at midnight, when he was sleeping, they sneaked in, opened the door. The first one went in, reached out her hands. The goose was sleeping on the pillow right next to Jack's head. She grabbed the bird and the bird went quack quack. Jack woke up and said, "Attaccati là!" And the girl, indeed, was stuck to the goose. She couldn't take her hands off. She started screaming and crying, and her sister came running and grabbed her on the quack quack. Attaccati là! And the sister's hand was glued to the older sister's shoulder. Together the two girls screamed and shouted, but Jack he couldn't understand what was going on. Clearly he was not welcome in the inn, so he got dressed quickly and off he went through the door, followed by the goose, followed by the first daughter of the innkeeper, followed by the second one. The innkeeper, in his underwear, came running after them and reached out to his daughter and quack quack. As soon as he touched her waist, he got stuck to that as well. And so they went, Jack and the goose and the sister and the innkeeper. And come dawn, they passed right in front of a church. And the priest saw a young boy, a goose, two girls, and a man in his underwear. Oh, there is no religion on this earth. He ran down the stairs of the church and he waited. As soon as he saw the innkeeper, he kicked him in a quack quack. Attaccati là, and he got stuck with his foot to his butt. And off they went, Jack and the goose and the girl and the innkeeper and the priest, until they reached the smithy of a blacksmith. The blacksmith, when he saw the priest jumping on one foot, resting the other one on the butt of the innkeeper, "Oh, I'll teach him. And he went, and as soon as the priest was in front of him, he just punched him, quack quack, attaccati là, and he got stuck with his fist to the jaw of the poor priest. And off they went, Jack, the goose, the girl, the innkeeper, the priest, the blacksmith, and the wife of the blacksmith. She slapped his quack quack, and one after the other, all of the town, they got stuck in an endless pile. When they finally reached the castle, it was the longest line of people, all stuck together in weird shapes. And whoever saw it couldn't but laugh. The noise of laughter was a thunderstorm, was so loud that the princess heard it on top of her tower. She looked down and saw a crowd around a boy, followed by a goose and a girl and another, and a man in his underwear, and a priest jumping on one foot, and the the blacksmith punching and the wife, and she laughed. For the first time in her life, she laughed so hard that she couldn't stop. She laughed so hard that she started crying of laughter. She laughed so hard that her maids ran to the king. She laughed so hard that when the king came, she was still laughing. And she was still laughing as the king took her to church. And she was still laughing when she met Jack up close. And she was still laughing when another priest named them husband and wife. She was still laughing, and as far as I know, she's still laughing now. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for spending this precious time with me. I hope you enjoyed these 3 stories. I was so absurd and silly, but thank you for holding on. It was indeed a great experience for me. Now, you will find a link down in the description to our online hat. If you loved or enjoyed at least what you saw, donate something, even just a penny, just to help support art that is still thriving in this trying time. If you didn't like what you see, on the same link, make a donation so I can get better. Old joke, but always works. I really hope that I'll see you online again. And thank you so much to the World Storytelling Café for having me. Have a good day and a good night.
Young and old, you've been listening to a wonderful storyteller. And if you really liked it, if you've got a little money, doesn't have to be a lot. A little goes a long, long way, as they say. And you can afford it. Just pop it into the storyteller's hat, because right now they're not earning at all, so whatever you've got, it will be appreciated. And I'm sure you parents want to set a good example for your children. Oh, it's lovely. I'm only joking. But it will keep some of us going through this crisis. And those of you that are self-employed out there will know exactly what I mean, and you're probably exempt.